Hello and welcome to our series of Target Prelims 2019. Coming to the first topic for discussion, this is the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana, a very important scheme. Questions can be expected on this. The first thing that you should know about the scheme, that this is a central sector scheme. Now, a difference between central sector schemes and centrally sponsored schemes is what you should have some basic idea about. A central sector scheme is one which is 100% financed by the central government. It is largely on an issue which is there in the central list, and the machinery for implementation of this scheme is also the central machinery. Whereas a centrally sponsored scheme is one where the central government is sponsoring that scheme in a particular ratio. This could be the 70-30 model, or for that matter the 90-10 model. So these are the ratios in which the central government is sponsoring, and also the implementation burden of these particular schemes are on the state government, and these are the schemes that are on state, both on matters which are there in the central or the union list, as well as on matters which are in the state list. So this is the basic difference between central sector scheme and the centrally sponsored scheme, and Kisan Sampada Yojana here is a central sector scheme, so please remember that. Next is the aim of this particular scheme. The aim here is to supplement agriculture, that means to supplement agricultural income. It is also aimed at modernizing the processing of agriculture and decreasing agricultural waste. This is what is important. This is a rare component of any agricultural scheme, of decreasing agricultural waste. So this is something that is there in the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana, so please remember that. Now this word Sampada here has been broken down. It has a full form. Now these full forms are somehow difficult to remember because the present government has a fascination towards developing or coming out with such kind of mnemonics. But still, if this is the trend of the government, so we will have to remember that. So this stands for the Scheme for Agro-Marine Processing and Development of Agro-Processing Clusters. Next, what you should know here is the implementation period of this particular scheme. The implementation period is from 2016 to 2020, so this continues to be an implementation period, and that is why also important. Also, what you should know that there are 7 schemes that have been included under the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana. This is first and foremost the Mega Food Park scheme. Next is the Integrated Cold Chain and Value Addition Infrastructure scheme. Next is the creation or expansion of food processing and preservation capacities. Next is the creation of infrastructure for agro-processing clusters. Next is the creation of backward and forward linkages scheme. Next is the food safety and quality assurance infrastructure scheme. And next is the human resources and institutions that are going to be developed under the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana. So these 7 schemes are what you should have some particular idea about. Now, even if you cannot remember, many students ask me that it is very difficult for them to remember. Even if you cannot remember, even if you have read it 2 to 3 times, trust me, when you go into the exam hall, you will be able to make a reasoned guess. You will be able to identify that what are a part of the scheme and what are not. So please keep some confidence on yourself and try and revise them again and again, and that is how you can remember. Coming to the next scheme, this is the Operation Green. This is very important scheme. Now primarily this is important in the context of India because the background here is that I'm sure you must have seen such kind of depressing photographs or pictures or news that is being reported where the farmers are largely throwing their crop on the roads, or they're burning their crop because nobody is ready to buy their crop. There was a famous photograph where tons of potatoes were thrown by farmers on the roads. So in this backdrop, this particular scheme was what was launched. So if you remember it through a story, you'll remember it better. So this is what is launched on the lines of Operation Flood, and that is why it's called Operation Green. Operation Flood was with regards to a revolution in the milk industry in India. It is one of the most successful projects of India, and this is the project Amul. So this is what you should know about Operation Flood also. Now coming to the aim of Operation Green, the first aim is to double the income of the farmers by the year 2022. Next, what is important is that it wants to promote the farmer producer organization, which is known as FPOs for short. It wants to promote agri-logistics. It wants to increase the processing facilities and professional management of the greens in India, the agricultural produce in India. Well, here what you should know that this scheme is what is going to focus on a price fixation as well as reducing the volatility. Basically, 3 crops are what are highly volatile. This is tomato, onions and potatoes. Now what happens is that sometimes the consumer is suffering in these particular vis-a-vis these particular crops, and sometimes it is the farmer who is suffering. If these crops are what are in shortfall, then the consumer will suffer because these are basic crops. These are what are required for every single meal preparation in an Indian household. Whereas if this is what is in abundance, then what happens is that the farmer is not getting any remunerative price for them, and the farmer and this crop has a very short shelf life also is what is important. Especially potatoes and tomatoes are what are prone to immediately rotting for that matter, and as a result of which farmers have to sell them off at penny prices, and that is what is a cause of concern. So this particular scheme ensures that the prices of these particular crops, at least that is, you can remember them from the mnemonic top, that is tomato, onion and potato, is what should be fixed, and the price volatility in these crops should be reduced. So this was the intended crops under Operation Green, but now this has also expanded to other crops. So if an option comes that it is exclusive to these 3 crops, so that is not the case, it has been expanded. What is very, very important is the nodal agency. It is not the Ministry of Agriculture, but it is the NAFED, which is the nodal agency for Operation Greens, and this is one thing that you need to remember. Next, what is important is a part of the current affairs. Now, this is basically an act that came into existence in the year 2018. It was passed. This is the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act. Now, this is primarily in light with the fact, or the background here is that India is having, or it is seeing in the recent times, that a lot of economic offenders are actually going and settling abroad and thus not facing their the courts or the prosecution in India, and they are being declared as fugitive. So to bring them back to India and to ensure that proceedings are done against them, this particular act is what was passed. For instance, the Vijay Mallya, who is the ruler of Kingfisher, or Nirav Modi, all of them are fugitive economic offenders. So there is a criteria that has been set up under this particular act. The first thing is that an arrest warrant is what is going to be issued for any specialized offence where the value is what is more than rupees 100 crore. So this one limit is that you need to remember, because this is the first time that a limit has been set. Next, a person is going to be declared as a fugitive economic offender if he has left the country and if he refuses to return to face prosecution. So these are the 2 criteria, that if an arrest warrant has been issued against that person for a fraud that has involving a money more than rupees 100 crore, or if he has left the country. Next, what is important is that this is what extends to loan defaulters, to fraudsters, to violators of laws governing taxes, to people who are involved in black money, for Benami properties, and also for financial corruption. So these are the areas where a person can be declared as a fugitive economic offender. Next, you should know about the implementing body. This is the Enforcement Directorate. So this is the important aspect that you need to remember here. Next, what is important is that this arrest warrant is what is going to be issued by some special courts, and these are the same special courts which were introduced or which were formed under the PMLA, which is the Prevention of Money Laundering Act of 2002. So these are the courts who will give these orders, who will pass these orders, after which a person will be declared as an FEO, which is a fugitive economic offender. And once the person is brought back, he will also have to appear before the special courts only. So this is the importance of the special courts. Next, what is important is the provision of attaching the properties of the accused. This is something new. Previously, this was not in a provision for under any particular act. Now, if a person has been declared as a fugitive economic offender, his property is what will be provisionally attached. So this is what is important. Next, what is important is that on the declaration of the fugitive economic offender, property may get confiscated also, and also vested with the central government. It can also be sold. So this is what you need to know about the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act. So there are some problems, there are some challenges vis-a-vis this particular act, because the Indian law says that a person has to be considered innocent until proven guilty, but here punishment is what is being given before prosecution also. So that is one thing that is being flouted here. That is a fundamental right of that person is what is being flouted. Another some problems are that when the money is going to be obtained by selling this property of that person which has been attached, then where are the proceeds of this money going to go is not clear under this act. So these are some problems vis-a-vis this particular act, but from prelims point of view, you only need to know about the special courts which are under the PMLA of 2002. You need to know this limit of 100 crore. The implementing body is what is going to be important for us, and also you should know that there is a provision for attaching property. So that is what is important from prelims perspective. And that's all about our discussion today. Please take a look at our programs. We are starting with an IAS prelims revision batch from the 20th of April. So those of you who are interested, these are our contact details. Please do get in touch with us. And that's all for today. I thank you all for watching the video.